So when you're designing a product or service, you have to think about its whole life. That's why we've done life cycle mapping. And then consider from your data and analysis, what kind of areas of intervention and change you can make. Now, first of all, there's what's called sustainable design strategies. I've made a few different tools that help cover this, and there's a series of them. These have been developed over years by different designers and people working in advancing sustainability. They're things like design for dematerialization. That is about reducing the amount of materials required in order to produce your product. So we've seen strategies like thick materials being converted into lightweight materials with honeycomb structures and engineering solutions. We've also got technology that's become smaller. So dematerializing is about reducing the number and weight of materials required to achieve your functional outcome, but it's also about the way in which materials are connected. Because another key sustainability strategy is called design for disassembly. And disassembly is about being able to take your product back, take it apart, and get the usable materials. So that might be chips in technology, it might be gold, or it might just be plastics and different solid materials that can be recaptured and reused. So design for disassembly requires you to consider the way the materials are put together and the number of materials, because the more materials you have, the more complicated it is to take apart. If you're engaging in product stewardship, which you should be, but that's essentially where you're taking responsibility for your product across its entire life, such as Herman Miller and their chairs, they're designed for disassembly so that they can be taken back very quickly and efficiently taken apart, and the usable materials reused and the recyclable materials recycled. So next we have design for recyclability. Now, this is an easy one, and it's one that I think a lot of organizations fall into the trap of thinking is the best option for them. But let me tell you, the recycling market has had a little bit of a catastrophe since in 2018, China decided to no longer accept the world's recyclable materials. So since then, we've seen the global recycling market essentially collapse in many established economies, and we're seeing a lot of unscrupulous and unethical behavior. So you can't just rely on recyclability as the solution to your product. First of all, you should design for something to be post-disposable, meaning it doesn't have disposability embedded in it. But if it has to be disposable, then that's when you need to consider the most likely pathway to recyclability in the communities that your products are being sold in. It's a bit complicated because you might have a global product. So for me, recyclability is it's like the low-hanging fruit that for sure if you have to do it, but realistically you want to have reuse before recyclability. Now, another key concept is design for multifunctionality. This is fantastic for things like apparel, clothes, fashion, furniture. You know, people buy furniture, they move house, being able to take it apart, put it back together in different ways. All of these kinds of design strategies increase the longevity of your product. But in order to make something multifunctional, you need to make sure it's also durable and that it's easy for the customer to take it apart, put it back together, reconfigure it to meet their needs. We also have design for modularity, which connects to that one too. Using low impact materials. We've discussed a little bit about material myths, but understand that there are some materials that have a much higher embodied environmental impact than others, but they might also be more appropriate for your product. So that consideration is really important. In fact, sustainable design is about trade-offs. And this is the kind of uncomfortable thing I find a lot of people encounter and don't really know how to navigate. But essentially, there is going to be an impact in whatever choice you make. And a good designer, a good producer figures out what the full system is, where the impacts are, and how they can maximize the positive benefits and essentially create an ongoing life cycle for the product. And that's really what circularity is about. It's about thinking about how products can go from this kind of linear, they end up in landfill, through to circular, where they're being infinitely reused or recycled. So one of the last ones is design for durability, and that is ensuring that the product has a long life. Now, some products naturally are durable. If they're made from wood, they're going to have, a kind of inherent strength. And some products are designed to be disposable. So whilst it is the reality that some products will always be disposable, I think it's important to consider how you can ensure that the products that can have a long life, a secondhand goods market, for example. So recently we've seen IKEA experiment with designing products that customers can then sell back to IKEA, later, and then other people can go and buy them because they're designed to be more durable. So there are a number of sustainable design strategies. They apply at different stages of your product's life and within different contexts. The job for you to do is learn them and discover how they can help you design more, not only sustainable, but cool and consumer desirable solutions.